A definition of LGBTQIA+. LGBTQIA+ is an acronym for lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, intersex, asexual, and plus. Lesbian, gay, and bisexual refers to an individual's sense of personal and social identity. Transgender is an umbrella term for people whose gender identity or gender expression does not conform to that typical associated with the sex to which they were assigned at birth. Queer is to express that sexuality and gender can be complicated, change over time, and might not fit neatly into either or identities like male or female, gay or straight. Intersex. Intersex people are born with sex characteristics that do not fit the typical definition for female or male bodies. Asexual is the lack of sexual attraction to others or low or absent interest in or desire for sexual activity. Plus is many other terms such as non-binary and pansexual. What is homosexuality and same-sex marriage? Homosexuality is a sexual interest in and attraction to members of one's own sex. The term gay is frequently used as a synonym for homosexual. Female homosexuality is often referred to as lesbianism. Next is same-sex marriage. Same-sex marriage is the practice of marriage between two men or between two women. Although same-sex marriage has been regulated through law, religion, and custom in most countries of the world, the legal and social responses have ranged from celebration on the one hand to criminalization on the other hand.
Next, it is important for us to know the definition of morality. According to Cobbett Advanced English Dictionary, a morality is a system of principles and values concerning people's behavior which is generally accepted by a society or by a particular group of people. According to Patton, morals or ethics is a study of the supreme good. In general, morality has been defined to include all manners of rules, standards, principles, or norms by which men regulate, guide, and control their relationship with themselves and with others. For an example, Christian morality would be conduct approved by Christians as in accordance with the principles of Christianity. Meanwhile, Confucian morality would be conduct approved by Confucius. The application of morality must consider these four aspects. Firstly, religious morality. It refers to a human being in relationship to a supernatural being such as God. In the Jewish and Christian traditions, there are commandments that pertain to this kind of morality. For example, the first three of the 10 commandments, which deals with a person's relationship with God, not only with other human beings. By violating any of these three commandments, a person could act immorally toward God without acting immorally toward anyone else. The next aspect is morality and nature. Morality and nature refers to a human being in relationship to nature. Recently, the Western tradition has also become aware of the significance of dealing with nature in a moral manner. Some see nature as being valuable only for the good of humanity, but many others have come to see it good in itself, which is worthy of moral consideration. In the morality and nature aspect, a person could be considered either moral or immoral, depending on the actions toward natural things. The third aspect is individual morality. Individual morality refers to individuals in relation to themselves and to an individual code of morality that may or may not be sanctioned by any society or religion. It allows for a higher morality which can be found within the individual itself rather than beyond this world in some supernatural realm. A person may or may not perform some particular act not because of the society, law, or religion says he may or he may not, but because he himself thinks it is right or wrong from his own consciences. The last aspect is social morality. Social morality concerns a human being in relation to other human beings. It is probably the most important aspect of morality in that it cuts across all the other aspects and is found in more ethical system than any of the others. In religions such as Buddhism and Confucianism, The social aspect represents almost all of the morality, thus everything that is directed toward the individual aspect is also often intended for the good of others who share in the individual's culture.
It is vital to look through the news in order to analyze the homosexuality issues in Malaysia. So the first incident, which is being shown on the screen right now, is the government wishes to impose stricter rules against the LGBTQ practices in Malaysia. And the second incident is that the former Prime Minister of Malaysia, Tun Dr. Mahathir, stated expressly that Malaysia will not recognise LGBTQ culture or same-sex marriage in the country as it does not subscribe to Western values. However, homosexuality in other countries receive a different point of view. For example, the Supreme Court of India declared that same-sex is no longer an offence in criminal law. And these are the highlights on an October 2019 report that analyzes survey data from 174 different countries to produce the Global Acceptance Index, which is a measure of the relative level of social acceptance of LGBTQ people and rights in each country. The report was conducted as a part of LGBTQ and Intersex Global Development Partnership. Malaysia can be seen to be a little reluctant in legalizing or socially approving homosexuality comparing to other countries around the world. Homosexuality is considered as an immoral act based on social morality and religious morality in Malaysia. Homosexual or same-sex marriage is against the morality of Malaysian society due to deep-rooted belief in religions that expressly prohibits the practice of homosexuality.
Bentham, or Jeremy Bentham, is an English jurist and also a positivist. He is best known as the founder of modern utilitarianism. According to Bentham, positive law must be regarded as separate from morals. His argument is that positive law, in the sense of law of state, is something ascertainable and valid without regards to subjective consideration. However, he admits that positive law might correspond to many aspects to current moral standards and be subject to their influence. Bentham's view on homosexuality has been highlighted in his essays. During his last 50 years, he has written almost 500 pages outlining his liberal views on homosexuality. He has an essay titled Offences Against Oneself, Pederasty, written in 1785, which was known as the first argument for the homosexual law reform in England. In his essays, Bentham calls for the decriminalization of sodomy, which was punished by hanging during those days. He opposes the punishment on the grounds of utilitarian and criticized the ascertained sexual morality. Bentham also cited biblical proof for Jesus' homosexuality in Not Paul but Jesus Volume 3 as a part of his theological argument for same-sex love. Not Paul but Jesus Volume 3 lays out many arguments that the LGBTQ Christians still use today, such as discrediting verses that condemns LGBTQ people, and points out that Jesus has never mentioned homosexuality.
John Stuart Mill was an English philosopher, economist, as well as an exponent of utilitarianism. He was a prominent publicist in the reforming age of the 19th century and remains of lasting interest as a logician as well as an ethical theorist. One of Mill's famous principles was the Hart principle. This principle prohibits restrictions on individual rights unless they decrease harm to individual other than the actor or the doer himself, the one who is performing, and there is probably no other way that is similarly effective at no higher cost to other values. So what does that mean? It means law cannot interfere, even if it is too good an individual or prevent self-harming. A famous, well-known example used by Mill was that the policeman preventing individual from crossing the dangerous bridge. If the repercussion of the physical injury or moral or social offense are restricted to the actor himself, the harm principle does not allow for forcible prevention of physical harm, or moral, or even social offense. Mill is against intervention. He opposed paternalism based on two grounds. First, achieving human excellence requires exercising individual autonomy. As long as acting on one's opinion does not cause harm to others and only regards one's own satisfaction, there is no reason to prohibit individual from doing so. Mills also asserts that each person, if they enjoy autonomy and realizing their own individuality, it develops one's physical and mental faculty. The second ground is fallibility of paternalistic interference. Mills believed that only the actor himself, the potential recipient of the government intervention, can decide what is in his own interest. Even if his decision is perceived by others as wrong, the principle still holds. Even if such interference would benefit the individual, meaning the actor, no one can justifiably exercise authority over purely self-regarding matters. The reason why he advocates for the sovereignty of the individual is not because an individual is perfect, but because he is in a better position than others to judge the effects of his own actions. In applying Mill's principle in homosexuality, we can see where Mills suggests that where an individual is acting in a way of which others disapprove, they can of course try to persuade him that he would be better off acting differently, but they are not free to visit him with any evil in case he do otherwise. And in another writing that Mills did on liberty, and of course if we look at the harm principle, it suggests that neither the state nor society should interfere with an individual's private relations or send harm to third parties, and further that adult consensual relationships are valuable because they are chosen by the individuals themselves. Mills once said that all errors which an individual is likely to commit against advice and warning are far outweighed by the evil of allowing others to constrain him to what they deem to his good.
Another jurist that was discussed in this video is Devlin. His full name is Patrick Arthur Devlin, and he was also known as Baron Devlin. He was born on 25th November 1905 and passed away on 1992. He was a British lawyer, judge, and also a jurist. He was well known for his debate between Hart regarding homosexuality. Devlin's view on morality is closely related to society. Society means a community that have a shared idea on politics, morals, and ethics. Therefore, we could say that society has a big part on Devlin's view on morality. Devlin states that society has the right to deem an immoral act as a crime, no matter whether it was done in public or in private. This is because if someone did an act that was deemed as morally wrong under society's eye, this could cause a disintegration in the society. And the act is seen to be immoral if it reaches a level where the society sees it as intolerance, disgust, and also indignation. Moving on to Devlin's view on homosexuality. Devlin has disagreed with Mill's harm principle and also goes against the point that was stated by Hart regarding this issue. This is because Devlin's belief the public morality still should be upheld. He believed that no one in the society agreed that homosexuality is a good way of life. Devlin argued since no one in the society thinks that homosexuality is a good way of life, homosexuality is an immoral act, even though it was done between two consenting adults. Devlin then gave an example regarding incestuous relationship between a father and a daughter. He said that the father knows that this act is not a good thing. However, this is the only way that he could satisfy his lust. Therefore, Devlin has applied the same example into homosexuality. They know that this is not a good thing, however they did it because of lust. However, after some time, it was believed that Devlin eventually agreed to sign the Waldenford Reforms because he thinks that homosexuality does not reach the level where it is intolerance, disgust, and also indignation. Therefore, it was not an immoral act.
Herbert Lionel Adolphus Hart, or famously known as H.L.A. Hart, most recognized for his contribution to legal philosophy, especially legal positivism, takes morality seriously and claims that law and morality are closely intertwined. Law is a tool for social control, which means that the rules of the law must meet specific requirements in order to effectively achieve this aim. Hart also claimed that using the threat of criminal punishment to reinforce morality was irrational and completely inappropriate. In his response to Devlin's view on homosexuality, according to Devlin, was immoral and argued that law has a crucial role to play in protecting the morality of society. Hart, questioning himself, is the fact that certain conduct is by common standards immoral sufficient to justify making that conduct punishable by law? To answer this question, Hart, by referring and partially agreeing with John Stuart Mill's theory on harm, the only purpose for which power can rightfully be exercised over any member of a civilized community against his will is to prevent harm to others. The conduct was divided into two categories by Hart: private life and public concern. And according to Hart, things relating to sexual derivation were classified as private life so that they would not hurt others. Hart concluded that the law has no reasons to regulate it since a person's sexual preference or behavior does not cause harm to others. Hart, in my opinion, underlines the need of determining whether or not a person's action might harm the public. Even if the individual's acts are immoral in the opinion of the majority of the public, as long as they do not harm the public, the law has no right to impose a punishment on that person. Plus, according to Hart, it is nonsensical to reinforce morality by using the threat of punishment.
Morality is deeply entrenched in Malaysian society as a whole. Islam, as the religion of federation, clearly indicates that morality plays a large role in Malaysian social legal system. The question of whether or not homosexuality is moral is one subject to debate. According to the natural theory of morality, what is natural is morally right, and what is unnatural is morally wrong. Homosexuality as an act is of course unnatural, hence it is morally wrong. Even 2000 stated that if properly understood and applied, natural law theory should be ideal for our pluralistic society since presumably we are human beings, and that holds at least in common for all. And the current legal status of homosexuality in Malaysia, which refers to the LGBT group as a whole, is criminalized under Section 377 of Penal Code, which provides that unnatural acts such as carnal intercourse against the order of nature, as well as acts of gross indecency, penalized with imprisonment up to 20 years and whipping. Jeremy Bentham views positive law might correspond in many aspects to current moral standards and be subjected to their influence. Hence, he opposed the criminalization and punishment of sodomy offences. In his opinion, homosexuals should not be punished. During this time, homosexual action do not pose a threat, in his opinion, to population nor marriage, whereby there was no strong reason to criminalize homosexuality as it causes no harm to anyone. However, Bentham's view on morality is unsuitable to be applied here in Malaysia. Our present moral standards are completely different from ancient times. Religious and cultural norms about gender and sexuality are the dominant sanctions that still influence public receptivity towards the LGBT community in Malaysia. Even though one cannot completely rule out the possibility that homosexual behavior is a consequence of some biological factors over which the actor has no control. But since homosexuality tends towards not begetting children, homosexuality runs contrary to the values attached to marriage and procreation, whereby by begetting children through a marriage defines one of the essence in Maqasid Syariah for the Muslims, who form a large part of population in Malaysia. Besides, the act could lead to destroying the sense of identity of those who engage in it. This may cause more work for Malaysia administration.
Bentham's view on homosexuality, which explained that such actions brings no harm, appears to us to be placing an unfound restriction on the scope of harm, whereas the actual long-term consequences of legalizing homosexuality are wide, not limited to areas of national economics, public health and racial peace. In Malaysia, it is evident that the same-sex marriage or homosexuality will inadvertently have an effect on public order while causing shocks in the wide general public sense of morality. Additionally, legalizing homosexuality could even backfire and further encourage the practice of homosexuality, especially among the younger generation, and this could have the undue effect of disrupting national development. At first glance, homosexuality may indeed seem like a non-criminal behavior with sanctions seeming rather disproportionate. However, looking further, the public as a whole and even further generation are the victims as such as act would end up reducing the population for our country. Malaysia, according to the National Population and Family Development Board (LPPKN), would be an aging nation by 2030. Acts of homophobia would definitely exacerbate this situation of Malaysia. Devlin is on the side that homosexual acts are against morality. However, he concluded that the act does not reach the extent of intolerance, indignation, and disgust, and therefore there was no need to legalize and put sanction on the actor. In Malaysia, weak moralism is contradictory to the teaching of Islam, which is defined as a way of life, and hence there is no separation between public morality and private morality, and no standard measure is used to decide whether a particular immoral act should be punished or not, because immorality becomes a conclusive reason to regulate the indecent act. Ergo, we agree that Devlin's opinion on law should punish any conduct that is immoral even if it is in a private sphere where the conduct was done without the intention to influence other people. However, we disagree with the principle weak moralism he suggested. We also agree with Samuel P. Huntington, who argued that in Clash of Civilization that there is no universal standard in matters regarding human rights. Morality should thus be measured according to the standard of each society by taking into consideration of the history, legal or otherwise, as well as the circumstances such as custom, religions and social structure in a particular state. Hart also recognized homosexuality as immoral. However, he holds on to the harm principle where law should not intervene in any private act that does not cause harm to the society. In the context of homosexuality, according to Hart, there was no empirical proof of its treasonous nature. Hart's opinion on separating the law and morality is not applicable in Malaysia, as morality is one of the essence of legal system in Malaysia. Islam, which is the religion of the Federation, prohibit homosexuality. In relation to this, Article 11 Clause 5 and Article 10 Clause 2 of the Federal Constitution clearly upholds the principle of morality, where Parliament has the right to impose restriction on any acts that are against morality. Hart sense that law is an instrument of social control, and in this manner harm may be brought onto others who may easily be influenced by such lifestyle and bring something best limited to the private sphere into the public domain. In their debate, Hart and Devlin agreed that the erosion of morality may well be harmful to the society. The only point in where they differed was regarding the prohibition of homosexuality in its entirety. Victims of offences against morality may seem intangible, but the point is that they exist. These victims include the general public, future generation, and the sensitivity of religion as a whole. The consequence of the crime may not be immediate, but negative consequence will inevitably emerge and erupt in society. Morality is thus a profoundly embedded value in the Malaysian social legal domain, and to restrict in any way would prove a tall order, even the sake of upholding personal liberties. Damage to deeply ingrained ideals would end up spelling disaster for the entire nation.
All in all, we choose not to fully agree with the jurists. This is due to the fact that certain principles in morality can only be applied in our legislature if they fit the context of Malaysian society. Homosexuality is against morality, and restrictions upon the act should be imposed by law. Legalizing same-sex marriage or homosexuality may raise a threat to the very fabric of public order in Malaysian society. It also taints the sanctity of religion, where in general, public morality in Malaysia is for the most part based upon religious morality, especially when looking at the role of Islam as the religion of the Federation and when the first national principle in our Rukun Negara is to uphold our beliefs in God. So to conclude, removing or restricting morality from the Malaysian legal system to any extent for the sake of upholding individual liberties is a tall order, as morality is a near fundamental value in Malaysian society.